monsters, madness, and magic.
Alright, folks, welcome to the Monsters, Madness, and Magic podcast. I'm your host, Justin, here with a quick word before we dive in. Now, in this episode, I chat with musician and author Peter Salatellis about Sword and Sorcery, the new album from Bloodstone, growing up around music, the paranormal, and more. As always, thank you all for listening out there, and without further ado, here you go. All right, Pete, take us back in time. You're a youngster. Are you a book reader, fort builder, troublemaker, or all of the above?
Well, I was always a book reader. I think most people who know me kind of know that. I was always reading books, but I was a big fort builder also. Especially in my younger days, in my grade school, elementary school days, was a big fort builder. Oh yeah, it was a rural area. It was like in the schoolyard. It was outside. This is gonna sound like the most stereotypical Canadian thing I'm gonna say, but I mean, like there were snow forts, right? Like, I remember we would build these snow forts, and we would have like these tribal wars. So we would set up kind of like these clans throughout, the grade, and a whole bunch of people would just take part in it. And they used to build this mountain. They used to take all the snow in the schoolyard, and they used to shovel it, and they used to build this mountain. And then if you waited enough time, there were these like huge ice rocks that would, form in the mountain. So we would have like these huge wars to see who can take the most of those rocks and build their fort. And then we would kind of go on skirmishes and stuff. It was a lot of fun.
See, that sounds cool to me, but I feel like, people that grow up in places where it doesn't snow kind of romanticize the snow and they love it, and then people that deal with the snow are like, no, it's bullshit.
Yeah, I mean, I could see that. I think driving in the snow is that thing. But honestly, like I'm a winter guy. I prefer winter over summer, so I don't complain about it too much.
Yeah, dude, you should see us down here in South Carolina. If there's like a snowflake in the air, schools are shut down, you can't, you got to get
Are
your
you
gas, milk.
serious?
It's bad. It's
Oh my
apocalypse.
God.
It's an apocalypse down here if there's a snowflake in the air.
Have you guys ever had like big storms down there?
Probably not in your terms, but for us, it's pretty big. But really, what really gets us down here is ice. So if it is like ice
Yeah.
on the roads, literally you can't do anything down here because the South really doesn't have the infrastructure to deal with that sort of thing. We're not used to it. Our winters here are like 70 degrees.
Oh wow. Yeah, I gotcha.
So just curious, I'm looking over your shoulder there. Is that all books? Is that a combination of albums, books?
Oh yeah, that's they're mostly books. The one right behind me, that tall shelf over there.
Hmm.
Wait, there it is, right there. That's all CDs. The one right next to it is like more oversized books. Like I got some comics there. I got some hardbacks, and then the one just right next to it, that's all vintage paperbacks. Yeah, I've been collecting throughout the years.
Well, let's start there then, man. What's the most rare book that you own? And maybe not monetarily wise, but just like, just hard to find in the wild.
Yeah, I mean, I think I already told you about that one, but that Niftaline
Yeah.
coffee, that was pretty rare. Um, yeah, I spent way too much on that. We're not gonna talk about
Hey,
that was like my one kind of splurge purchase. I'm not a splurger, okay? But man, I saw that and I don't know, something went off in my brain and I just bought it.
it's probably going to
Um,
get worse, so you probably got a deal on it considering how it's going to be in a couple of
yeah,
years.
yeah, man, that's what I'm scared of. Yeah, I have some very, very nice copies of the Swords Against Darkness from the Andrew Offit anthologies. I have all of them, but the second one and the third one, I'm very happy to own because those have some really good stories in them and they're really fine.
We might have talked about this, but I can't remember if you got it or not. Well, did you pick up the Echoes of Valor, the Carl Wagner compilation?
Oh yeah, no, I don't have those yet,
Okay.
unfortunately. Actually,
Yeah,
no, sorry, that's a lie. I have the first one.
yeah, that's not the second one is like the more reddish tinged color, I think. Am I right? You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, yeah, you're right. Yeah, no, I have the first
Yeah,
one. I have the kind of orange, yellow. Yeah.
gotcha. So with your childhood specifically, what sort of authors are you leaning towards in books?
Well, when I was a kid, I didn't really read much literature. I read more mythology stuff. Because that's kind of what we had lying around the house a lot. And well, my dad, he did a college degree, a minor in classics, and my mom also did a major in English literature. So we had a lot of books in the house, right? Not much fantasy though, but we had Lord of the Rings, we have The Hobbit, things like that. So I read those, but I was really into the mythology because I was also taking Greek mythology in school because the elementary school that I went to, like it was in the French system because obviously we have French over here, right? And we're in Quebec. A school that was owned partly by the Greek community, so we actually learned Greek, and that's how I learned Greek. We learned Greek, Greek mythology. Religion was a big part of it, so we had those classes, right? So that always interested me. And around the house, we had these. Well, I mean, we still do. I still read them. We have these like huge encyclopedias. They're kind of like these big black hardback square books, and we have them about Greek mythology, Norse mythology, Slavic mythology, Celtic mythology. So I read all of those, and that's what I would read as a kid.
Yeah, and it's fitting because most of the stuff that we like is pulled from straight from mythology. Is seamless.
Exactly. I think that's why I kind of fell in love with Sword and Sorcery in the first place because when I was reading it, or when I started reading it, it just reminded me of all the mythology I used to love as a kid.
Hmm.
And I was like, oh my God, this is exactly what I want to be reading.
What was the introduction there to Sword and Sorcery? Sorry.
It was actually through heavy metal because I mean, look, I'm pretty young. I'm like relatively young compared to the other people you have on this show. I just turned 20, so I did not know. I obviously did not know about Sword and Sorcery when it was like in stores and during the boom, Sword and Sorcery boom in the 70s. So I got into it because I was getting into these bands like Eternal Champion, like Manila Road, Legendary was a big part. I love Legendary so much, man. Oh man, which other bands? Like so many, those bands, Eternal Champion, Legendary, Manila Road, Cirith Ungol, those Cirith Ungol album covers, right? I figured out that was Elric. And I was like, oh my God, I gotta know more about the genre. And first, one of the first Sword and Sorcery books I bought was actually the Swords of Steel omnibus from DMR Books. I
Shout out
bought that
DMR.
and shout out DMR, Davis, man. Yeah, so I bought that and a Conan anthology. Those were the first two that I bought. I still remember it. And that was like in 2020. That was pretty recently.
Yeah, Dave does the well. I was going to say the Lord's work. He does Crom's work.
Yeah, he does. His work pleases Crom. That it
And
does, yeah.
I'm pretty sure I've told this story several times, but I always I found my way into it backwards because I was a Lovecraft horror guy first, and then just branching out from Lovecraft, you go into his circle, you find Robert Howard. And I started with Howard's
Right.
horror stories first, and then kind of backpedaled my way into oh,
Really?
this is the Conan guy, and then here we are.
Oh, so you had heard about Conan before, but,
Yeah, yeah, of course. Yeah,
right?
I saw the Conan movie before I even started reading, so yeah.
Oh,
I
yeah, yeah. Well,
I just wasn't aware because I was so young when I saw the movie. I wasn't aware of the whole mythology behind it or Robert Howard. Really, I was just like, it's Arnold.
yeah, right. Well, what was the first Robert E. Howard horror story that you read?
I believe it was the thing on the roof, or maybe the
Oh, okay.
horror from the mound. One of those two. Those are the two ones I
Oh,
frequently.
both are very good.
Yeah,
Yeah.
love those two.
I think he was pretty underrated as far as horror goes. He had some really, really good horror tales.
Yeah, and it's kind of sacrilegious to say to Lovecraft fans, but I almost prefer Howard's approach to Lovecraftian style fiction because just more personally, that's how I feel, how I would want to react. I'm not gonna say that's how I would react. Lovecraft characters tend to go
Right, right, yeah.
insane and cower, but Robert Howard's like, oh, we should cut that thing's head off.
Yeah, no, definitely. Howard's prose is much more visceral than any of his contemporaries. Like even Clark Ashton Smith or H.P. Lovecraft. Howard's prose is always like very down to earth, very gritty and real. I think that's why a lot of people like it. That's why I like it personally.
Yeah, and even on one of those, one of the Conan, it may be a Conan compilation, but there's the quote that Stephen King says about it, which is perfect. It's like, his words are like sparks and they fly off the page, which is like exactly how it feels.
Yeah, those are on the Del Reys. They're right behind me. I don't know if they're probably not visible, but yeah,
Yeah,
it describes it perfectly.
that's his strong suit, but I'll give Lovecraft some credit because what he does better than nobody else is atmosphere. Just like I always say,
Right.
his stories are like heartbeats, and like the rhythm just increases, 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 and then like you're just like in a swamp of suspense by the end of it, and you're looking over your shoulder.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. No, definitely. I've done that a couple times because I usually read at night, right? So,
So let's transition to film and television, man. Like, what are some formative films and TV shows you grew up on?
well, I guess my favorite movie of all time would have to be Conan the Barbarian.
Hmm.
I mean, that one, I remember when I saw that the first time, I was like, what did I just watch? Like, what's going on here? And I think the thing I liked most about that movie is that it had meaning to it, right? Like the whole thing with the Secret of Steel, that's something that, you don't necessarily get on the first watch, and you have to kind of go back and unpack it a little bit. And I like that. Honestly, I like that about art, just in general, when you have to listen to an album a couple more times, or you have to read a story a couple more times to really, really start understanding it. I think you appreciate it more that way. I think that's why that movie was really special because it was one of the first movies that I saw that I was like, yeah, this there's significant meaning here. It's not just about fantasy, right?
Hmm.
I guess other than that, when I was really young, I watched Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure a solid like 50 times.
Now I'm starting
I
to
think
see
that's where
where you take shape. Conan and Bill and Ted.
I think yeah, I think honestly that's where the a lot of the well, mainly the obsession with music started was with that movie. And I mean you had some kind of like medieval medieval battles in that movie too, if I remember
Yeah.
correctly. So
Put him in the
yeah.
Iron Maiden.
Excellent.
It's just popped in my head. I'm curious. Like you're not as old as us fogies. You start reading Sword and Sorcery. Did you have any desire to write your own fiction before then, or did that just sort of bubble from how much you love this stuff you were reading?
Yeah, I think it bubbled from what I was reading because honestly, when I started, I'm going to be honest here, when I started reading Sword and Sorcery, I was not like as into reading as I was in my younger days. I'm not quite sure why that is, but I guess for like the later years and the early years of high school, I was playing hockey for a while and I was really into sports. Then I got into music and I was doing that kind of, full force. And I hadn't really read as much as I did when I was like really, really young, like in first grade, second grade, third grade, that kind of thing. So when I started reading Sword and Sorcery, it was partly because of lyrical inspiration for music, because that was around the time where I was with, well, I mean, we weren't called Bloodstone back then, but I was jamming with Jesse and Dimitri, and it was getting, more serious, and we wanted to take the lyrics more seriously. But none of us kind of wanted to write lyrics. So I decided, okay, you know what, why not? I'll take a crack at it. And I couldn't really find much inspiration besides, like mythology and literature and stuff. So when I started reading Sword and Sorcery and I saw that there were a lot of other bands that were doing this kind of thing, like I said before, it kind of reminded me of all the stuff I used to read as a kid. And I'm like, oh my God, I love this stuff.
Yeah.
And that, yeah, I guess that kind of started also with D&D because we played a lot of D&D. Us
Mm.
three, me, Jesse, Dimitri, we played a lot of D&D. So
Are you the
that had something
DM?
to do with it. I'm only recently a DM. I was not a DM then. Jesse was the DM then, so he was the one that ran the campaigns. And I think we also had another DM at that point because we played with a couple of kids in the grades above us.
Which records were spinning around the house? Were your parents into music a lot?
Oh yeah, definitely. My dad was, well, I mean, he still is, huge into music. He's a drummer.
Mm.
He can also sing very well. I can't. but he can. My grandfather was also a very, very musically adept. He was actually a priest, Orthodox priest, and he used to chant. He used to play and teach piano. So that's how mostly how I learned piano. I took some classical lessons as a kid, but I mostly learned through my grandfather because we played, the most songs together and stuff. And I couldn't read anything. I just learned with the ear and just by patterns. But yeah, when I was really young, my dad would spin like Deep Purple a lot. Judas Priest. I have videos of myself belting heading out to the highway when I was like 3 years old.
You should have your dad do some guest vocals on the next Bloodstone track.
Well, he was actually he did backup vocals on the EP, all the harmonies and stuff.
Oh
He did those.
shit!
Yeah.
That's so cool, man. Well, obviously he digs it, but he must be very excited for
Oh
you guys.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. He's really happy about it, and I'm glad he is because he's the one who kind of got me into all this stuff, and I
It,
got the collection bug from him too. So
well, so when does the guitar first enter your hand? You said you started with piano.
right, right, yeah. The guitar. I started playing guitar. I think when I was 10 or 11. No, I think I was older than that. Maybe 11 or 12. I think. Yeah, I'm 20 now. In November, I'd be playing for about 8 years. Yeah, I was about 12 years old when I picked up the guitar. I was in sixth grade. Honestly, I don't really remember what kind of drove me to pick it up. I guess music was always just a big part of my life, whether I knew it or not. And I think at that time, I was starting to get more into it because before that, I was into sports. I was playing hockey in elementary school and things like that. So I think I started getting back into music when I was in sixth grade. I was about 12 years old. And I started rediscovering like all the hard rock that I listened to when I was really young, like, Purple, Rainbow, and obviously the metal stuff like Priest. So I think that's when it started. And it's just been an addiction since then. Like I haven't put it down.
I'm going to be honest. I thought you were going to say something along the lines of like how you did with the Sword and Sorcery that you just picked it up a few years ago, and I was going to be like, Jesus fucking Christ.
No, no, no. The guitar was definitely before that. No, I've been playing for I don't know about 7 to 8 years. I'd
Yeah,
say.
dude, you can shred for sure. Trust
Thanks,
me.
man.
And I know that you've taken lessons from Howie, so I wanted to ask you a bit about that. Just finding out about College
Right,
and Born, seeking out lessons from Howie and how that went down.
right, right. So I found Cauldron Born through Swords of Steel, right? Through the omnibus that I bought when I first started getting into Sword and Sorcery. I didn't know Cauldron Born before getting it. I knew Jason from Eternal Champion. I knew Dave from Legend. I think his name's Dave, right? His name's Dave. Yeah, Dave from Legendary. I knew about him. I knew about Joe from Doomsword. I knew he had a story in it. But yeah, I discovered a lot of new bands through that Swords of Steel omnibus, and one of them was Cauldron Born. And I read the stories, and I really liked them, especially House of Fear's Guest. I've told Howie this, but man, that story, that's like on my list of top sword and sorcery of all time. That story is fantastic. If anyone hasn't checked it out, I highly urge you to check it out. It's a great story. But yeah, it was that story, and I discovered Cauldronborn after reading that. And obviously, I mean, I love Cauldronborn. So, how did I start talking to Howie? I think it was on probably on Facebook a couple of years back. I wanted to do a Cauldronborn cover because I like doing these Facebook covers or Instagram covers, whatever, about just underground bands in the scene and try to build a little bit of a community amongst people that like this stuff. So I reached out to Howie and I'm like, yeah, I'd like to do a Culture War cover, and he's like, yeah, man, go for it. And I did it, and I guess from there we just started talking about metal, sword and sorcery, and it kind of snowballed from there. And I knew he was taking lessons, so I took lessons with him quite recently, actually, when I wanted to write solos for Bloodstone, right? I wanted to make them as good as I possibly could. So I took some lessons from him to like just for some general tips, for some licks and stuff. And man, he's a phenomenal teacher. He really is. Great guy, great teacher too.
Yeah, and I'm not a musician and I don't know how to read music or anything, but I just wanted to ask you, like, what would you say is his teaching approach? Like, what are some of the things you learned from him specifically, if I could understand it?
Yeah, I think I think the biggest the most important thing is that he shows you the theory, but in a very practical context. So he doesn't just tell you, okay, this is this is this scale on paper. He actually shows you what to do with it. He's like, okay, here's the key that you're in, here's the chord you're playing over. You need to use this note, and that note to make it sound good. So try to land on those notes. He
Hmm.
would always explain the stuff in context. I
Yeah.
think that's the big difference.
Do you have his oh God, I'm gonna kill myself for not thinking about this. The book that he just released, the
Yeah, the heavy metal guitar scales.
yeah,
I do
there
have
we
it.
go. Yeah, 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 yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, definitely. That's a great book. It's a phenomenal book.
So before we stray too far from your childhood, I do like to ask everyone, and what scared you as a kid?
Oh man. I mean, so many other people have said this, but I mean, I was terrified of the dark as a kid.
Hey, me too.
Yeah. Well, I think it's just it's the unknown, right? The dark is a bit mysterious because I mean it's not really anything tangible, but I find the real horror comes in when you allow your mind to kind of take over and fill in the blanks. And that's the thing about the dark is that I mean, obviously you don't know what's there. There's probably nothing there, but your mind kind of, goes crazy and starts thinking of all these things. And I mean, I think that was the number one thing that scared me as a kid.
Yeah, it's a dark blank canvas, and then you could just start fucking with
Yeah,
yourself.
yeah, exactly. I mean, yeah, man, look, dude, Lovecraft understood this fact more than anyone else.
Hmm.
He knew about the horrors of the unknown and the tricks that your own mind could play on you. So, I mean, he was onto something very clearly.
Yeah, like he would help it along with some description, but most of the scares from that stuff come from yourself, which is why it's so
Right,
effective.
right, right.
Would you say you were a horror movie guy growing up?
I actually haven't watched that many horror movies, especially the new ones. Like,
Yeah.
I've seen a couple of them, and I'm just not a big fan of them, man. Like, they're kind
Yeah.
of boring. I like really really old horror movies. I have a box set of Hammer or back there.
That's the good
I
stuff
got
right
like
there.
yeah,
Yeah.
well the Christopher Lee Draculas. I got all of those. Universal Frankenstein. I've watched that. It was Universal, right? I'm not
Yeah,
messing
you're
that
right.
up.
No, you're right. You're right.
Yeah, right. Was that Tombs of the Blind Dead? That's
Hmm.
probably my favorite one.
Yeah.
The Spanish horror, amazing. So that's the kind of horror that I watch.
That's the good stuff. I mean, don't
Yeah.
don't downplay it, man. You're
Yeah,
into the
no, it's
real
it's
shit.
fantastic. Oh, how he actually recommended this to me a while ago, and I finally got around to watching it the other day. It was Captain Kronos, the Vampire Hunter. There's another Hammer movie. That movie's fantastic. I
See,
love
now
that
you
movie.
just threw out one I have not heard of or have not watched, but that sounds right up my alley.
I recommend it. Yeah.
Captain Kronos the Vampire Hunter. Yeah, that sounds like a story Howie would write.
I mean, I think he wrote a song about it actually. I think on the first Britain Writes album, I think there's a song about it on it.
There we go.
Yeah.
So, just sticking with going back to writing for a second, rather, what does the process for you look like? Do you, I kind of know this already, but for
Yeah, we've
listeners out
spoken
there,
about
yeah.
it. Yeah, so I'm not a very big outliner. I do have the ending in mind because I usually write with like a theme that I want to write about, that I want to kind of get into and explore. So I start with a theme, and a lot of the elements in the story just are symbols and allusions to that theme. So that kind of already gives me the ending, usually, about like 95% of the time. So once I have that, I think there's something to be said about pen and paper. So I usually put pen to paper and write like a synopsis usually. And honestly, that's pretty much it. I don't outline too much. But I also don't kind of just go in and have no idea where I'm going.
Yeah.
Because if I do that, I'm not a very consistent writer, unfortunately, as much as I'd like to be. So if I do that, I risk just putting it aside and just never coming back to it.
On average, just generally speaking, how many drafts would you say that you go through for a single story?
Matt, the one I had in Swords of Steel 4, that one went through, I think, five, five, six drafts.
Hmm.
Because I had that story for a while before it got published. I think I had it for about a year. I was just sending it out to different magazines, but none of them really took it. So I was always kind of went back and edited and fixed things. So yeah, I think that went through about like five or six drafts. The new one I have one other one. It's in this thing, the
Yeah.
Bloodstone magazine right here. Shout out to Greylord. Love Mike, great guy. But yeah, that one's really short. I think I went through maybe two or three drafts on that one.
So that story that you just picked up in that magazine there, just give folks a taste of what it is, without spoiling it.
Yeah, yeah. So this story over here, let's see if we can find it. Yeah, In the Fires of the Fallen. That's what it's called right there.
Hmm.
So this one was actually very inspired by the Dungeon synth song called Pyres of the Battle Slain from Bronze and Oath.
Mm. Okay, yeah,
Uh,
yeah.
you, you know who's behind that project, or
I don't. Why do you?
I mean, yeah, I mean it's a Big Slime from Rush of Power. He's
Ah,
behind like
shit.
most of those projects, and a bunch of other ones that I have a funny story about that later. Remind me to
Mind
tell you.
blown.
But yeah, it was him who did that, and I don't know that track specifically on that Bronze and Oath release. I don't know, it's just there's something about it, man. It's just like so atmospheric and eerie, and you just listen to it and you kind of start painting pictures in your head of what that thing can look like. So that story came really from that track, even though it's an instrumental. So I was listening to it and I was like making up these all these ideas of like, oh, you got this mound of the battle slain and there's a ritual that needs to happen because what happens in the story, it has the same protagonist from Shadows from Night Eternal, Ivus. He is kind of fighting off this invasion of these like demon possessed warlords from another land. And the story picks up right after one of the battles for this keep called Necrothier Keep. And it starts with him kind of like walking up the bridge to the keep and he's seeing like all these like strewn dead corpses and stuff. And he's walking through the fog and he passes the gate into this keep and he gets attacked. He suddenly sees one of his fallen comrades who somehow rises back from the dead, helps him out a bit, and then they complete the ritual of, the fires of the fallen. So the theme of that story was kind of had this idea, this like metaphysical, the realms kind of meeting in battle, where in battle the realms of life and death kind of intermingle as one, and you can't tell them apart. That started taking shape in my head pretty much when listening to that singular Dungeon Synth track. I don't know how this happens, man. It just kind of does. And I mean that's what I kind of wrote the story about. Like it's about almost metaphysical this metaphysical journey, kind of like Bridge of Death from Manowar. That song also had
Yeah.
something to do with it. But he's like, walking up the bridge into the realm of the dead, and then the gate of the dead closes behind him when he leaves and stuff.
Took us
So
30 minutes to get to a Man of War reference. It's got to be a record.
yeah.
So,
Yeah, I mean, yeah.
yeah, yeah. I know you know
Mhm.
John Zaremba, and one of
Oh
his
yeah,
one of
of
my
course.
favorite stories of his is straight come on, it's straight Dark Avenger, Fist of the North
Oh,
Star.
that's Manowar.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
That's definitely Manowar.
We'll get to the origins of you guys coming together for Bloodstone, but while we're on writing and such, now there is a song on the EP Ecstasy of Battle, Pit of Wings, which is clearly an homage to Ramsey
Yeah.
Campbell. When did you fall into Campbell, and what do you love about that story?
Campbell was very recent actually.
Hmm.
Um, the only thing I have from him actually is that chapbook kind of that DMR put out a while ago.
Yeah.
That has his four because he only wrote four Sword and Sorcery stories. I mean, he was more of a horror writer. But I think that's one thing that, while we're on the topic, I think that's one thing that stands out about his writing. Even though it's kind of, hard as nails, Sword and Sorcery kind of thing, there is undeniable, very, very strong horror elements in his writing. And I think that comes through from him being a horror writer.
Yeah.
And I think all good Sword and Sorcery has to have some kind of element of horror
Hmm.
at some point. But yeah, that story is for sure an homage to Campbell, and I had the idea of doing it because I wanted to, if we were going to be writing songs about stories, I wanted to do a story that no one else wrote about, no one else has written songs about. So that story stood out to me because I really, really like the theme of that story. Because the whole thing that happens is Ryer, I think that's how you pronounce his name.
Yeah.
Ryer the swordsman is being taken as a slave, like as a captive. So there's kind of dichotomy in there between the slave and the wings, which usually would represent freedom. But the wings in this case are very, very morbid. They're
Hmm.
morbid creatures. So I really, really like that about the story, and I really like that kind of that dichotomy there. That's what stood out to me the most about that story.
Yeah. 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 And before I didn't want to say it, but sword and sorcery without horror is fantasy, and that's not to say that fantasy doesn't have horror,
Yeah,
but
right.
you know what I'm saying, right? It's
Yeah, I know exactly what you're
yeah,
saying.
yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
like, there is a difference between high fantasy and sword and sorcery, right? And that has a lot to do with the horror elements.
So before we backtrack, you have any other stories that you're working on? You want to talk about anything in the pipeline floating around?
Yeah, I have a couple of them. I started writing this like Edgar Allan Poe style horror story. I told Matthew Knight about it. We've spoken quite a few times about it. I haven't finished that yet because I started writing it right before I started my semester at university. And I mean, the semester started, and I've just kind of gotten busy with that stuff. So I haven't gotten the opportunity to go back and finish it. I have that. I have also I started drafting this new kind of. It's not exactly a sword and sorcery tale. I would say it's more of like a Clark Ashton Smith inspired like retelling of mythology. It's kind of a retelling on the myth of Isis in the name of Ra from Egyptian mythology. So that's a cool idea. I've had I could like spin that in a Clark Ashton Smith style story. So I think that's the next one I'm going to tackle right after this
Yeah.
semester finishes. This semester's getting pretty hectic. So
What was the first concert that you ever went to?
first concert was Scorpions.
Damn.
No, sorry, it was Megadeth. Megadeth opening up for Scorpions. I think it was in 2018 or 2019. I can't really remember. One of those. But it was Megadeth opening up for Scorpions in Place Belle in Laval. That was the first concert I went to.
That's
It's mostly for Megadeth, honestly, because I was huge into Megadeth at that point.
it's hard to top that one. You kind of just started at the tippy top.
Yeah, yeah, no, definitely. I mean, I've gone to some great ones after that, but that one will always be pretty special for me. I
So,
still have the Megadeth shirt I bought from that concert. I still wear it sometimes.
take us through the Bloodstone origin story. You mentioned that you guys were playing together before you were Bloodstone, but how do you guys become
Yeah.
friends and start playing music together and stuff like that?
Right, right. So I think it started pretty much entirely with myself and Jesse. Jesse's the drummer. We met in school because we took part in this thing called GarageBand. So what GarageBand was, like in school, we had the music program and we had the music band that would play like jazz songs or like, jazz rock, that kind of stuff. That was a school band, but we also had this thing called GarageBand in the first and second years of high school, and that was put together by the music teacher at the time. Unfortunately, he retired now, but Mr. Dufresne, shout out to him. I love that guy. But he would put together this. garage band. It was basically like a rock ensemble. It was like, five or six musicians, and we would play like classic rock and hard rock. The first song we played actually was "Lay It on the Line" by Triumph, and that was one of the first solos that I learned, and I
Wow.
still I still love that song to this day. So it was through that band, and they didn't have any other guitarists in the grade that Jesse was in because Jesse's a grade above me. So they asked me to do it, and I was like, "Yeah, of course, I'd love to do this." So I joined that band, and that's how I met Jesse, and we just started jamming through there, basically. I mean, it was pretty much nonstop after that. Like we were jamming in the music room every day at lunch. We were even like writing riffs at that point. It
Hmm.
was just pretty crazy to think about. But we found our bassist Dimitri shortly after that. We played around with a couple of different guitar players, and I mean, okay, this is kind of a little bit embarrassing to say, but we started playing mostly Motley Crue covers at that point.
You gotta start somewhere.
Yeah, I mean, it was easy stuff, and we were all kind of into it at that point. But yeah, we we started with a lot of Motley Crue covers. Um, but yeah, that's pretty much how it started. It started with me, Jesse, and Dimitri, just jamming in the music room at school.
It's funny that you said Motley Crue and that's easy stuff because when I interviewed Mick Mars, I was like, so Mick, what's the most technically difficult riff that you had to play? And he like, none of them. I mean, they're all pretty easy. So that
I mean,
checks
I
out.
think I think that was kind of the point of it too, because
Yeah.
you want it to be fun and you want kind of people to easily get into it.
So that first YouTube video you guys posted, believe it was that your first live show, or was that just the first one that you guys recorded?
Oh, the one at the Barfly, like back in
Yeah,
November.
yeah.
Yeah, that was the first live show we played as Bloodstone,
So you had played.
like
That
with
wasn't
that
your
name.
first time on stage. Is what I'm saying. Yeah.
No, 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 definitely not.
What was that?
Well, I mean, personally, I've been on stage since I was like 4 years old. Um, because my dad, well, I said before that he's a drummer. And when I was really young, he used to play these like Greek festivals
Mm-hmm.
in Ottawa, and I would sometimes accompany him up there and like bring along like a little guitar and just kind of strum a little bit. So I was, I think, like 4 or 5 years old, maybe even younger. I don't fully remember when that was. When we were under the name Zodiac, because we had the name Zodiac before, when we had our other guitarist, Chris, we played one show at our high school the year that I graduated, because that year we were just coming out of COVID. It was the first year where we could kind of like get back into things and start gathering again and start doing the music concerts again. So when we started doing the music concerts, none of the other grades wanted to do it. And it was only us who really decided to push for it because we were graduating and we really wanted to do the show. So we pushed for it. And when the music teacher saw that none of the other grades wanted to do it, he's like, "Okay, Pete, I was playing in two bands at the time. He's like, "Oh, you play in two bands. Why don't you bring them up here and rip a couple of songs?" So we did. So I brought obviously like Bloodstone back then was called Zodiac. We played three songs. We played like The Trooper. We played The Last King of Pickdom by Eternal Champion at that show.
Damn.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun. We played a Power Trip song also. And before that, I played with Divine Bloodline because I was in Divine Bloodline, and it's kind of like melodic death metal kind of thing. It's a bit of folk. Think like Ensiferum, Winter Sun, that kind of stuff.
Gotcha. So
And I
clear.
brought that back home too.
Damn, dude. So clearly you never had to deal with stage fright then. Never an issue. Never nervous or anything like that.
Yeah, I don't know. Stage fright. Yeah, it was never been an issue for me. I don't know what it is, but like yeah, I would get nervous before shows, but that was mostly because I wanted people to show up
Yeah.
and I wanted to get a good turnout. That's what it was. But I no, I was never kind of scared of like freezing up and not knowing what to do on stage. That I don't know why, but that's never really been a problem with me.
if I'm wrong, correct me, but I'm going to assume that the name Bloodstone was derived from Carl Wagner. And
Right, right,
so,
right.
what was your introduction to Carl Wagner? Was it Bloodstone?
Carl Wagner, my introduction to Carl Wagner was Eternal Champion.
Oh
I mean,
yeah,
I mentioned the
yeah,
Eternal
yeah,
Champion a
yeah.
lot in this so far, but yeah, it was the song "Sing a Last Song of Valdez." I really liked the lyrics of that song, and after hearing it, I was like, oh my God, I gotta find out where this is from because I knew they were writing about stories and Sword and Sorcery and stuff. So I'm like, oh my God, I gotta find this. So eventually, I found that it was Carl Edward Wagner, and right then and there, I started looking for the Kane books just because I liked the lyrics to that song. And eventually, I found them all. And Bloodstone stood out to me as a name because it was also a Judas Priest song. It's also the title of a Judas Priest song. And in my mind, I liked having that kind of, oh well, it has to do with heavy metal, but also sword and sorcery at the exact same time. So it's kind of like that nice bridge, you know?
Yeah, and one of my favorite horror franchises is Subspecies, and the whole point of that whole series is there's this how he loves this guy. It's a vampire named Radu, and he's searching for
Oh
the
yeah, I think he's told me
Bloodstone.
about it a couple times.
So I thought it may have something to do with Subspecies, but yeah, the Bloodstone is like Subspecies 2 Bloodstone. I'm like, so there's a horror thing you
Yeah.
can throw in there too.
Oh, I haven't actually heard about that. Okay, I have right after this ends, I got to ask you more about that
Okay,
because that sounds like something I'd like to read.
yeah, it's great stuff. So you just recently announced that you're going to be playing guitar for Eternal Winter. I almost said Eternal Champion.
Right.
We've talked about him so much.
Yeah.
so, so, did Matt just approach you and was like, "Hey, man, need another guitarist? How'd that go down?"
Well, I've known Matt for quite a few months, mostly because of Swords of Steel 4.
Hmm.
Because Matt reached out to me as soon as Swords of Steel 4 got announced, and he said that my name sounded familiar. I don't know where my name sounded familiar from. I think maybe Howie told him about it, probably. That's what I'm thinking, because we hadn't released anything with Bloodstone at that point. But yeah, he just reached out to me and he's like, "Yeah, I'm really looking forward to reading your story." And then I told him that I loved Eternal Winter. I've been following Eternal Winter for years. I like the stories, and we just started talking from there pretty much. And when the Bloodstone stuff came out, we started talking even more, and that's when he asked me to do the guitars for well, the lead guitars at least for the new Eternal Winter album. And obviously, I jumped at the opportunity. So
Yeah,
yeah,
and just Matt himself is such a good dude, and as a vocalist, he's like one of the most unique, and
yeah, for sure.
he's the man.
Matt's a great guy in general. In
Yeah.
fact, I when we were recording the Bloodstone album, I sometimes asked him a bunch of stuff about like vocals, because we wanted to do these background vocals, and we wanted the lead vocals to come out like really, really strong and powerful. And I'm not a vocalist, so I don't really know much about that stuff. So I remember asking him like, "Hey, you got any tips for us that we can do with our vocalist to kind of make him sound super strong and powerful?" And he would write me these like huge detailed emails with all these tips, like stuff that you can do while writing vocal melodies to have them sound good over the chord. And I was like, oh my God, like he's taking time to do this. This is incredible. So yeah, Matt's the man.
Have you ever listened to like his Nor synthwave album? I love that
Yes.
shit, dude.
Yeah.
I tell him that all
Oh,
the time.
dude,
I listen to
that's
that all the
so
time.
cool. It's Noir Sensation, right?
Yes, that's it. I was gonna beat myself
Yes.
up. I couldn't remember the name of it, but I listen to it all
Yeah.
the time.
Yeah. Dude, I love that song. That's fantastic.
I love that shit. It's funny that you were asking Matt about vocals because everybody who knows him and loves Eternal Winter knows he'll just do some of those craziest shit you've ever heard. So I thought he was gonna give you some advice that no one else could follow.
Oh, dude. Oh man, he does like I don't even know how he does it. I've never heard any other vocalist like come close to what he does. I mean, I know David DeFay. I
Hmm.
mean, he's kind of very influenced by David DeFay, and he's actually like, pretty close friends with David DeFay too. But I mean, he'll do some even crazier things.
Yeah.
So yeah, I don't know how he does this stuff, man. It's it's crazy.
So for the Eternal Winter, was most of the music already written? Did you have any input there? Was it mostly
Oh
done?
yeah, pretty much
Yeah,
pretty much all the music was written.
yeah, okay,
I just came in mostly for the solos. I added one kind of harmony rhythm part on one of the songs, When the Stars Invert, that one. But yeah, no, the music and lyrics were pretty much completely written. I just kind of added the solos.
gotcha. So for Bloodstone, what's the songwriting process look like? Is it always just starting with a riff and then you build from there?
Pretty much, yeah. I mean, it's usually one of us that starts off with the riff. It's either me, Anthony, or Dimitri usually. Anthony's the second guitarist. It starts with that riff, and we kind of start playing around with it, seeing if anyone else has written any type of riffs that can kind of fit close to it together. Um, I guess it kind of changed over the years because back when we first started, what we were doing was we were taking one riff and we tried to build from the ground up from that riff. That doesn't always work. In fact, it's very hard to do. I had a master class with Richie Faulkner of Judas Priest. I took part in like this online masterclass thing, and I asked him about it, and he's like, "Well, something else that you can do, which may be a bit easier, is record all the riffs that you write. And when you write a riff, go through your recordings and see if there's any other riffs that can fit with that riff." And that's pretty much how we write our songs now. It's like all that way. Because it's very rare that you write one riff and then you just kind of flow into it,
Yeah,
right? So, I mean, like when he told me that, that kind of changed my entire outlook on things, and it made me write songs a lot easier. So yeah, I mean, like back to Bloodstone, what we usually do is one of us writes like the main riff, and then we see if the others have any other riffs that can fit along with it, and we just kind of build the song from there. Usually the music comes first, and we write some vocal melody ideas, and then put the lyrics on after. That's usually what happens.
gotcha. And I may be misremembering this, so correct me if I'm wrong. But didn't you say that you guys were already working on some more stuff?
Oh yeah, I mean, we have like so many other songs ready to go that we just don't have the opportunity to record or don't have the freedom to record at this point. But actually, yeah, I guess I could reveal this now. We are planning to do a single, another
Mm,
single in the winter. And the last show that we played on Sunday, like just 3 days ago, we had a little fan vote. So we had all of the people that were at the show go back to the merch table after the show and vote on which one they want to see as the single. So yeah, I mean we have a single coming.
hell yeah, dude. Looking forward to that. So you may have answered this question already with your master class, but what's the best music advice you've been given? Who gave it to you?
Yeah, I think that thing Richie told me
Yeah.
was probably the best piece of advice because honestly it changed my entire mentality on songwriting, and it made me think of songwriting as this process that happens through a certain period of time, this iterative process. It's supposed to just, okay, one riff, one go, that's it, kind of
Mm-hmm.
thing. So that really allowed me to see that songwriting was, God, what's the word I'm looking for? It wasn't this kind of, you got to be in the headspace for it at one particular point in time. It's kind of something that, if you put in the work consistently and you keep writing riffs, eventually you're going to be able to build a song out of it. And honestly, that type of mentality is something that can be said about any type of art, like music, writing. It's not just one time you're in the headspace for it and then you do it. No, it's kind of consistency, right?
Yeah, dude. That makes a lot of sense to me. So, just to bring you back around, earlier you mentioned Big Slime to remind you of the name because you had a funny story about it.
Right, right. Yeah, I was talking with Greylord, with Mike at one point, and I was talking to him about all these like dungeon synth projects that I love, like Olden Helm, Bronze Oath, Frostgrime Dire, and he's like, "Yeah, do you know who's behind all those projects?" And I'm like, "Oh, let me guess, Big Slime." And he's like, "Yeah." So it just it just kind of seemed a bit funny to me that all of these projects that I really like are just manned by one dude.
Hey, he is the man. Rush of Power shout
Oh
out.
yeah, no, he's a workhorse, definitely. He puts out some really, really good content.
You know this question, Pete, so I'm going to ask it here. Have you ever had an experience that you would consider supernatural or paranormal?
Ooh, yeah. I don't know if this would count as like supernatural or paranormal, but I have had these like very serendipitous experiences where I almost predict something is going to happen before it actually happens. I'm bizarrely very, very good at predicting dice rolls for some
Mm.
reason. But one time, this was fairly recent. I had this dream where I saw like a band rehearsal in my dream, and it was like a Bloodstone band rehearsal, and it was just kind of one of those scenes that just passes really quickly in a dream. But for some reason, Matthew was wearing a suit. I don't even know why he was wearing a suit. He was wearing a suit. So the next day, we have band rehearsal, and I get in, and I get a text from Matthew saying he's on his way from work, and I kind of have this kind of foresight a little bit. And lo and behold, he walks in with a suit.
That counts. What are
So
you talking about? That definitely counts. You're seeing the future. That fucking counts.
yeah, I mean, like that stuff like that has happened a couple of times, and again, like usually with dice rolls, like I can usually predict dice rolls oddly well. I don't know why, but my mom has had supernatural experiences that she has told me about. Like she usually sees, I mean, like ghosts, but like dead family members sometimes.
Yeah.
Um, so like, well, one of the stories that she told me, her cousin died in Greece a long time ago. But when she got the news that her cousin died in Greece, she like saw him in his dream, and let's see if I can remember the story. It's like they were playing hide and seek in the dream, and he was kind of like looking over a little hill. And then the next day they flew over to Greece, and she went into his room that she had never been in before. And on his room was a framed picture of him looking over a hill. And another one, she saw, I think, my dad's grandmother. She kind of saw him, like they were sleeping in Greece one time. I can't remember when it was, but I mean they were sleeping in a room, and she kind of like briefly woke up and saw like a elderly woman kind of sitting beside the bed, and she like kind of freaked out a little bit. My dad woke up, and he's like, "Oh my God, what, Nikki, what happened?" And my mom was like, "Oh, I saw this elderly woman. She looked like this, and this." And my dad was like, "That's my grandmother."
Shit.
So she's had a couple of experiences like that she's told me about.
Runs in the family. Dude, it's funny that you mentioned, those little dreams that you have of sort of glimpses, because I don't think I've ever told
Yeah.
this on the podcast because it's so mundane. It's not like some, I saw the lottery numbers or something, but this has stuck with me since I was a kid because I just remember having this dream. I was going in a store. I think it was like a EB Games or Electronic Boutique, which is what GameStop was before it was GameStop.
Yeah.
And
Yeah. Okay.
one of my classmates was in there. And, nothing profound happened. He just had on a yellow shirt and looked at him. He looked at me, said, "How you doing?" Moved on. That was basically the whole dream. So fast forward a few days later, I go in an Electronic Boutique and there he is, same shirt, everything. We just look at each other, say what's up, and
Uh,
it's just like, damn, like what is that? What the fuck is that?
it's not deja vu because you haven't really seen it before, right?
Yeah, and it's the
So
exact
yeah,
same
I don't
thing.
know, but in the reverse
Yeah,
direction.
that just that just gives me
Crazy.
chills thinking about it because I was just like, I can see the future.
Well, yeah, I mean, you've told me about these very
Oh,
serendipitous.
the Bowen things. I haven't gone too deep in
Yeah,
that. Now
yeah,
that's a whole
especially
different
the
can of
Bowen.
worms.
Yeah, dude, the Bowen things are freaky, man.
I'll do an episode about those I'll just do a whole podcast about it when I release the Bow and Short Story compilation.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Just to build off of that, do you consider yourself religious or spiritual or anything like that?
Oh man. You know what? I would because I'm genuinely interested in like spirituality and religion and all these kind of things. But I wouldn't really consider myself like as practicing as in the past.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so I mean, obviously, like my grandfather was a priest, so I kind of have a lot of that. But I'm just generally interested in spirituality and religion at large. So it's something that I do read about like on a consistent basis and do think about because honestly, like it kind of freaks me out a bit. I'm gonna be honest. There are certain things
What
about
aspect
religion.
of it? What aspect of it?
Oh man, like this whole aspect of damnation and
Ah,
and punishment and penitence, like those things freak me out.
yeah. I wouldn't say that I wouldn't say that I freak out about that sort of thing, but I do often think about the afterlife and death, and not in like a morbid way, but just like more of a curious way. And it's
Yeah, yeah, I could
if
say the same thing.
yeah, if there's nothing, there's nothing, and I don't really care. But if there's something, like, what is that, and is that good? Is that worse? I don't know.
Yeah, that's the freaky part, right? It's
Yeah,
more of the unknown.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Just to put a bow on this thing, man. What's on the horizon?
Yeah. Well, we got the Eternal Winter album coming up in the winter, ironically in the winter. Um, yeah, that's being released on a record label in Greece called Alone Records, so that's pretty cool. And there's some more stuff with Eternal Winter. I mean, I'm not gonna reveal most of it now because I mean it's not like fully confirmed yet. But I mean, there's that album and there's a couple of other cool things that you should look out for. Obviously with Bloodstone single coming up probably.
Mm-hmm.
So that I guess could be looked out for. Uh, I mean, a full length is also on the horizon.
I appreciate your
Yeah.
time, dude. I had a great time chatting with you, man.
Oh, dude, pleasure was all mine. Hell yeah, oh, it's so much fun, man. Thank you.
All right, bye bye, man.
Thank you for having me on.
All right, folks, that's a wrap. I hope you enjoyed that chat with Pete. As always, thanks for listening, and we'll see you back next time.